Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vaccine Conversation. Melissa and I did a 5-part series on coronavirus, and we hope you enjoyed all that amazing information. We decided to take those episodes down because we didn't want to leave them as an ongoing part of our podcast series. So it was filled with a lot of good facts and data and information and a variety of different viewpoints. And so we hope you guys all benefited from that. And now we are back to an episode that we recorded actually several weeks ago before the coronavirus thing really took off. We had some fun with an in-studio guest and just had a nice conversation about a variety of different things. And so hope you enjoy this episode and look forward to more episodes coming up soon.
You get to be on the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
If you
dangerous.
want it.
I know.
Just give me 90 seconds.
Well, we can always edit. There's always room for editing.
Good.
No clearing of your throat.
Okay.
No saying, I'm curious, Colin. I'm curious.
I said that only like twice on the Nico interview.
What's so funny, though, that's after like 10 times on every other episode where I'm like,
I
don't
know.
say I'm curious again. You're like, got it. You're like, so Nico, I'm curious.
He's not allowed to say that. I don't notice that he says that
the
a lot.
same phrase. It's just it's always
say
his lead into a question to like transit. It's his one transitional phrase.
It's a good transition,
It's my way of interrupting the speaker. Like he pauses and I'm like,
Polite
I'm curious.
See, my thing is like you have to find something that they're saying and transition into what you want to say without using the word curious.
See, I'm
It's
not
funny
good at
that
that.
you
I'm not
mentioned
good at
that, Nico. Speaking of medicine, did you blah blah blah? That's
Are
how
we
you
recording
transition
right now? Because this is the kind of stuff
We are recording. Yeah. This is all. Yeah. This is
Oh,
all.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
We get lots of reviews that say
So here
don't do
is
the.
your microphone.
Oh, come on now.
Let's test your levels. Why don't you like talk? You have to like talk.
What's
like
up,
you're real.
guys?
You're like into the microphone.
This
close,
is crazy, guys. Why is this your last time here?
Yeah. Well,
Is our last time here?
Well,
Oh.
they are breaking. Oh yeah. By the way, Melissa.
Oh my God! What's happening?
This is our last time. No, they are breaking down the studio, I think, later today or tomorrow.
Whoa! This
Yeah.
really is the last
Yeah.
time here.
Yeah.
Then where are you going to go after that?
Yeah, so we
my-
are going to be...
Farewell, Walls.
I know.
It's
I
really
know.
cool
So
in here.
there's my garage.
Ping pong. We're gonna be ping ponging it like as we're doing it. We'll be like,
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fun. There is, we have
played ping
an
pong one
extra
time.
room in my house. My office has like an empty office space next door. Who knows? The possibilities are limitless.
the Vaccine Conversation
3
podcast
possibilities,
is
yeah.
moving on.
Yeah.
You're going
You're like a little
some
caterpillar.
foams. Some foam.
Yeah,
Looks like.
yeah, I know. I'd like to cut down on the echo because Melissa's voice tends to like echo.
Well, no, you won't need the foam if you don't have a room this size.
Right,
Anyway,
yeah.
if it's a smaller
Yeah.
room, it should be more contained.
Yeah,
But,
so-
oh my gosh! Yeah,
yeah.
thanks for the update.
I know.
You're welcome. You can thank me.
Jeez.
I know. Yeah, it's very sad. This is like very well. I told Colleen like you totally got to come in now because if you don't come in now, then you'll totally miss the last year and a half of the nostalgia
Wow.
of this
Wow.
space.
You
Our-
have done well,
goodness.
our own
guys.
little sort of like it kind of I don't know. It's like a safe place to
It
just
does
sit.
feel
and
like a little cave.
chat with everyone. So anyway, well, let me welcome Colleen to the show. Welcome.
We'll leave
Colleen.
last
Thank
names
you.
out of it
Yes,
just
yeah,
for
yeah.
anonymity.
So she could
I'll
be
give
like
you all
any,
4 of my names if you want.
And social security number, date of birth.
So she could be like any Colleen,
It's
yeah, I know.
Just
Yeah.
a Colleen.
Right. So don't assume it's the Colleen that's like commenting on our Facebook pages or anything like that. It's a totally different
Totally
Colleen. than that.
different. Just
Don't assume she's
random.
local either. If you've seen her
No.
involved
No.
in anything, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
that Colleen.
Why
Yeah, well-
not?
Well, why don't you tell us why Colleen's here, Melissa?
Well, first, do you want to welcome everybody to the Vaccine
should
Conversation
we actually
podcast?
start the show for real?
Yeah, with Melissa
Okay.
and Dr. Bob and in-studio guest.
Okay.
And we'll explain why she's here in a second. The mysterious Colleen is joining us. So Melissa, Dr. Bob, and Colleen for our last official in this studio episode for the podcast. So welcome. It's officially started now. You
But
can.
that wasn't much of a welcome, though.
No, it's you. You're
Okay.
the best welcomer.
Okay, all right.
I'm curious, Dr. Bob. Why don't you welcome our guest?
You do have the best welcoming voice. Welcome in.
I'm curious. How would you welcome a guest if you were to do so? I'm curious. Robert.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so funny.
It's every day is just like this. We just laugh nonstop. It's amazing we can like get serious enough to actually talk about something.
No, but there are times that I'm like silently cursing him. Like if we have like somebody on the phone and he's like eating in the microphone, I'll be like this, just body language. And like, well,
I thought you just called them out every time.
Not every
Because you
time.
sure have done
He's
that.
trying to be really quiet about it, but you could hear the little
the anger.
Like right now, let's see.
I know.
There you go.
Did you hear that?
I
That
know.
sounds like Dr.
I
Bob.
When you open the door for somebody else.
Welcome in, everybody, to the vaccine conversation with Melissa and Dr. Bob.
I thought I already did that part.
And
I mean, welcome our guest.
and Colleen. Colleen is our guest in the studio today. Okay, welcome, Colleen.
But why do we have a guest in the studio, Dr. Bob? Because this is not like every time.
Right, well, I'm curious why she's here
Are you curious?
as well.
I'm curious what you think of this.
So Colleen is a good friend. She's an acquaintance of ours. She's been in the vaccine freedom movement here in our area for a long time. And
I can tell you myself.
oh yeah, good, yeah.
I actually met Melissa for the first time at Serenity's birthday party.
That's right, her second birthday party.
Cool.
And we became your patients in 2015. Prior to that, your dad was our pediatrician.
Yeah, cool.
So that's
Awesome.
that's how you know me.
Awesome.
And she actually won a chance to be here because everybody else is like, wait, how do I get on the podcast?
Totally.
So she won a chance to be here by participating in our fundraiser that we had in Orange County and winning this chance. She's actually in the podcast, gets to be on the podcast and watch us record, which nobody gets access. I mean, we don't even videotape these, so like nobody gets
Right.
this kind of access.
Most genius live auction.
Yeah,
reward
that was
ever,
fun. We need to do that
really.
again. That
And,
was
and
fun.
Colleen's probably like, oh my gosh, I'm in studio with Melissa. I mean, how is that even possible?
My hands are
Is that what you're
sweaty.
like right now? I know.
No, you should feel my hands. I had to take something to fall asleep last night.
I get anxiety every time I have to come in here too.
I can't believe you don't. Oh God. Are you? Let me feel your hands.
I'm
Oh
good.
my gosh, they're warm.
I know. I'm clamless. I'm clamless. I'm devoid of clam.
That's funny. No, we appreciate Colleen. She came to our fundraiser last November
Your first
in
one.
San Juan Capistrano, right? And we had a live auction where we auctioned off people.
People.
We auctioned off like a variety of things, and one of them was an in-guest studio, and
Yeah.
and then she got outbid initially by
did.
two other acquaintances of
Two?
mine.
Oh,
Well, it's a husband-wife team, so they're kind of ganging up on you. She got outbid, and then I pulled the old, hey, let's offer
Hey.
2 packages and we'll have
Genius.
2 guests come in.
Genius.
And Colleen's like, oh, yes, me. And what were you really thinking? Were you like, okay, I guess I need to do it now?
No,
Or-
I was happy. And I was happy for you because that meant you just doubled your fundraising.
Yeah, which is so great. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
we're the fundraiser, again, for everybody who maybe isn't sure, has to do with our national podcast tour, which was unfortunately just postponed 6 weeks because of what I'm now calling Corona Gate. But
Yeah.
but because of that, so we're pushing everything back. But of course, we're 100% still doing it. Like regardless, it's like the highlight of our year,
Yeah.
and the peak excitement period of the whole podcast over the last 2 years. So this is a really exciting time, and we so appreciate people that were able to come to a fundraiser and support the process and think like, hey, we believe in what you guys are doing. We're supporting what you're doing. We want to help you along that way. So
Right.
so it was win-win because that really helps us to be able to do what we want to do, which is to keep educating, and it's nice to be able to involve people this way. It was the first time we had done that, so that was pretty
Genius.
Yeah, and part of the package of not only does Colleen get to come in studio and watch us have fun and podcast, but I promised she would get treats.
Yes.
And we're sort of fulfilling half of the promise today.
That's
Melissa,
good.
do you want to tell her
I didn't
why?
need more caffeine.
Do you want to tell her why that? So I
what
promised
did I do?
matcha.
What I do?
I promised homemade matcha, home
Homemade.
brewed by yours truly,
that.
Dr. Bob. And
Wait, can
and
you
I-
explain to people why you even know about matcha, though?
Yeah, it was Melissa. Melissa introduced me into matcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
she apparently thinks coffee drinkers are grumpy. all the time.
They're a little up and down. It's
Right.
a little more up and down.
Yeah,
Not just
so
a
she's
little more mellow, slow rise. But now you've become an expert matcha maker.
Oh no,
in
he
such a
actually,
short-
It's
you
right
actually
here.
have your, you actually did it?
He actually
Well, then
made
what's
it.
half of the promise? What's
Yeah,
the
what's
other
half of the
that's
promise?
missing?
I'm not like making it here in front of
it
you,
looks like
but
you
I
are.
made it at home. So you get to choose which mug you would like.
Wow.
This keeps it hottest, but it is metal, and these are ceramic.
I'll
What's your
have
choice?
this one.
Okay, right.
She likes it hot.
Yeah. So I just made this at home, but you don't get like the foamy magic. It's just warm, but it's not like foamed, like steamed, like I do at home with my espresso
Well,
machine.
then take it back.
Then she doesn't want it.
But part of the other package was homemade yummy
no.
muffin treats by
Don't.
Melissa, who's
I don't remember that part
who's
of
the
it,
guru
so-
at paleo baking.
When you
and
when you mentioned
gluten-free
that, I
baking.
was like, I didn't realize that's like what you meant. So I can do that at any other time.
No,
for
I'm
sure.
glad you didn't go through the trouble.
No. I would usually. I will absolutely go through the trouble.
don't.
Yeah,
I will
so-
do it. You
Yeah.
will get your paleo goodies, Colleen.
So yeah, this morning I'm like, Melissa, don't forget to make yummy breakfast muffins or something. And
Yeah, but last
She's like,
night
what
was
now?
crazy.
I have to go to the store? No, thank you.
I was awakened 4 times by my 3-year-old last night.
Oh.
It was brutal. I can't tell you how much I wanted to call and cancel and just be like, can we do this another time?
We could.
But I'm so glad that it's so hard to get everybody's schedules together. And I forced myself because
Do you
usually
want
during
some matcha?
I've had 2 already.
Okay.
And it looks like I'm going to have a 3rd.
Okay.
It was just rough. It was one of those nights where it's every 2 hours and I'm just going like,
But aren't you like just used to that? Isn't it just sort of
no,
automatic?
you know what? It honestly triggers PTSD for me of like
Yes.
newborn and early
Yes.
times. As soon as that
You
whole,
might-
are
you
they
might
going
want
to?
no lid to start on.
That's why I still have sleep challenges.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I swear it's
It
the
never
PTSD.
totally. I
from
don't
those
quite
days.
ever get better. You never relax anymore because you're always on this heightened. And then I
Right.
kept thinking I
Oh,
heard his
this is
door
so
open
good.
over and over.
Here's the
It was
bonus.
bad.
Like when you get a milkshake at Ruby's, they bring you like the metal thing it was made in as the extra. Here's the
A
extra right
milkshake.
there.
Yes.
Are you
Well,
talking
that's-
about
no, that's
a
for you.
frozen treat with lots of sugar
Yes,
and dairy?
yes.
No,
You
I
remember
don't know
those, right?
what it's like to get that at Ruby's. But I did go to Porto's yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Did you see on my page? I put on my story. Oh no. Have you been to Porto's Bakery?
I don't think I have.
Oh my God. Okay, so they have one in Burbank, which is where it originally started.
Okay.
And then now they have one in Buena Park and then in Downey.
Okay.
It's like the best homemade like strudels and croissants and turnovers and stuff like that. But of course, it's like, dairy, gluten, sugar. I go probably once every 2 years. Thank
Yeah.
you. And
You're welcome.
if you need stevia to sweeten, that would be right. So it was, I put it on my story as proof of like, hey, every now and then this is what I do. I hope Corona doesn't get me. That's what I said. But because they're beautiful to look at. I mean, the place is beautiful. It's huge, long lines out the door every time. But it's like, it's really honestly, it's crap food. So I don't do that very often. If I'm going to do it, it's going to be like the best.
No
though.
offense, Portos.
No, it's not great for you, but it's well done. And so I'll do that occasionally. I won't do the Ruby's milkshake, but I will do that occasionally. And I did it yesterday. And my stomach was hurting like within 30
geez.
minutes. I was
Wow.
like, why?
It's
Because I just
Wow.
don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And now I mean, of course, I totally know why. But
So anyway, yeah. So Melissa, like, this morning, she's like, there's no way I can bake something, and
Good.
and so,
But I will, though.
But she's like, Bob, can you go to the store and get something?
you got nothing going on. I had 2 children wrestling me
I know.
all morning. Like they
I-
were fighting over me the
I had
entire
a baby
morning.
to take care of this morning.
But you had
All right?
other adults that could have done
Yeah,
it
there
too.
was like 7 adults
And one baby.
and one baby to take care of this morning. Our grandchild is in
She
town
came out
visiting.
already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she's
Can
in
you
town
take those
visiting.
7 adults and bring them to my house to take care of my 2
So I'm like,
children?
sure, I'll go to the store, Melissa, and pick up muffins for our guests that you didn't bake. So you have, there's
Thank you.
These were freshly made.
Yes.
And I'm sure the bakery person there's name is Melissa.
Exactly, that's what I was
Probably. I
gonna
checked.
guess.
Her name
Yeah,
is
for
Melissa.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
so you're welcome to
Thank
this,
you.
and I will make sure.
And you're not allowed to have any of it.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, we started recording, so I can't eat. Dang it.
Well,
For
those
the
are
next hour.
soft.
Right.
So that should be fine. It's the chewy, crunchy stuff. No, here's the problem with Dr. Bob is that once he eats, like about 10 minutes later, he starts having like phlegm as a result. He has to clear his throat.
It's
I'm
the
like,
rules of a singer, too. You're not
Totally.
supposed-
That's
you can't
exactly
eat
what I always
before
Well, that's what
Fine.
Melissa always
I always
said.
tell him, just like a singer, you cannot eat for a certain period of time because it doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter
Right.
if it has dairy in it. It'll still cause that. So why don't you just eliminate both those things off the table and eat, do it before, do it after.
Yeah.
It's just an hour.
Are you going to have one or not?
No, this is all you.
Well, you go for it, and then
No, I'm not. I'm going to move them away from you so that you'll get tempted later.
She doesn't trust you.
Well, I was going to dig in when Melissa's monologuing or something during this episode.
Like that's what I do all the time, don't I? Do you see?
Oh my!
This is really good.
Yeah. So how's the matcha? So it's not Oatly oat milk. Sorry,
Oh,
they're
no.
out. The store's out. It's
This
just
is like the one that I have at home.
it's just standard Trader Joe's oat milk.
Oh,
so.
no, it's not.
That's what I'm
It
worried
is, yeah.
about. Oatly.
But
being out.
almost to a boil on the stove, and then see the secret that Melissa
Really
taught me
pretty.
about the matcha is you melt the matcha powder in like really hot in a little bit of hot water before you pour the oat milk in.
Right.
So if you just do it as a powder, then it stays a little powdery.
Yes.
So that's the whole secret. Yeah.
Good to know.
Excellent. So
Matcha
well,
101 on the vaccine conversation.
I'm curious. See, so,
I missed it. Matcha 101. Oh,
And then
you
said, "I'm
did?
curious." This is your.
yeah,
you just
I said
said
I'm
it.
curious.
You can only transition with "I'm
Right.
curious."
Speaking of matcha, Colleen, I just want to know, and our audience wants to know, like, how is you and your family dealing with this whole fight right now? And just, I mean, the issues with, with the new law in California, and
Or how
how's
about
it
let's start with
affecting
what
you
brought
guys?
her into this, and then
Okay.
kind of where she
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I did
currently.
not realize I was going to be interviewed.
You can just do like the shorter
Okay.
version if you
Yeah.
want. It doesn't
No,
have to be
no,
too
of
personal.
course. Well, yeah, it's all
either.
fine. So the vaccine book.
Oh, yeah?
Honestly,
go.
yeah, I had arthritis. I got diagnosed with a rare form of arthritis when I was a teenager. I was in a wheelchair for a few months, and I was on Vioxx,
Wow.
which we all know got taken off the market for falsified safety studies and fraud. And so that just got me questioning things. I was put on a bunch of other drugs that quickly shut down my kidneys and my liver. And so I just didn't trust what doctors told me
And this is
at
before
face
children?
value. This is when I was 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I got the vaccine book and read the entire thing, highlighted it. I mean, just dove right into it. And so I did not choose to vaccinate my children.
Right. How are you guys holding up with this new law? And
We are holding up well because we're being proactive, because we're not just sitting around and waiting for things to change. I listened to your interview with Nico this morning.
yeah.
And that just like fired me up, because I think you both know I'm a Christian also, and Jesus commands us to love our neighbor as ourselves. And so really before this all happened, I was feeling a little lost, because I knew that my life was really just about myself and not about anything bigger. And I knew all this great information, but I didn't know what to do about it. So I'm grateful that I feel like God has given me my place in this for this season, which has been the elections and our unique positioning in Orange County to really make a difference and make a dent in the supermajority that we have here in our demographic. And I'm so grateful for both of you. I've told you, Melissa, that I'm so grateful you have found your calling in this, because before I started listening to this podcast, I was terrified to talk to anybody. I felt like literally just stopped in my tracks. Like didn't know how to have the conversation. And it really is because of all my time in the car listening to you both that I don't feel that way anymore. And I know that you've done that for thousands and thousands of people. So I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you.
And that's what feeds us. You love that.
Well, totally. And also, it's sometimes I'm always caught off guard actually by hearing somebody say that, because I'm always thinking, really, we're just here talking about something. The fact that arms people with information, or that you can actually feel more empowered to have more articulate and impactful conversations. Of course, that would always be the intention, but I wouldn't even say that was our intention, because I didn't even think that was possible to get somebody to really do that, because I don't consider us like, leaders in the sense that people say that. Like, that was never our intention to come be leaders in this movement and come direct the message.
Those are the best leaders.
Well, I mean, yes, and I agree with you that it's when that's not your intention, is really when you're doing the best work. And it's just nice that we really just wanted to create content. That's what I always focus on, create content. The fact that content resonates with people in a way that allows them to perpetuate this conversation and propel it further and further and further is like just one of these things I never really thought was possible from it, but that we hear all the time.
Yeah.
And you're saying, if that's really what's going on, it's just like, it really is so humbling.
It's bigger than you.
And it's so amazing. I mean, which is, of course, what we always wanted it. We always wanted to somehow give tools to people, but for those tools to actually turn people into better advocates. where they feel like they're taking the lead on something. They're taking that lead and they're out there doing stuff now. And it was this one thing that kind of spurred it for them. That's the best. I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
At some point, somebody opened our eyes to something that got us fired up and got us into it. And the same thing's happening as a result of this. That makes me so happy. And of course, the most rewarding thing of doing all of this has been those kinds of comments, don't you think?
Yeah.
I'm
Totally.
curious. Dr. Bob, don't you think?
Yeah, my favorite comment to hear for some reason is one, like it's usually a mom saying, for so many years, my husband has not agreed with me on this issue. And your podcast, after listening to your podcast, he finally gets why I want to raise our kids this way. And now he's on board with me. Now we're a team again. We're not splitting up, going our separate ways. We're now a team. And thank you so much. I love hearing that. We don't hear that often, but I love it when I do. And then, I want to help create a whole bunch of Melissa and Dr. Bobs out there that people can totally just go out and want to talk to everybody about this and feel educated and excited and empowered to create relationships with everybody around them. And so that people can understand you better and you don't feel afraid to do that anymore. And I to me, it's like when I'm sitting at home doing nothing, I want to know there are, thousands of people at that moment talking to somebody about the vaccine conversation because we've just inspired people to do that. And that's what kind of our mission to change the world in this way. So
I also really like getting the reviews or messages from healthcare professionals, nurses, women who think my husband's a doctor. He has to be quiet on this issue, but we listen to the podcast. He's opening his eyes more because of this. Or nurses that'll say, I've been quiet for 20 years on this issue, and you've finally given me what I needed to stop being silent on this. I just got one last week where it was a nurse saying, and she was so self-critical. She was mad and angry at herself for staying quiet, and she was angry for what happened to my kid and other people's kids, knowing she didn't do more to stop it. And she's coming to terms with her own guilt of all of this. And she was ordering some Vax postcards, actually, because she's like, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I have to start doing something. And it's from listening to your podcast that has given me the moral push. And that's like a whole nother level, right? You've got this moral push of, we can't all be carrying this burden for you. You all need to be carrying this burden together and with us. And that's the only way we make changes. And so those kinds of messages I get are really powerful too. We're talking about people in the medical field who have been trained a certain way. They had their doubts. They had their experiences. They realize what's going on, but they've been too afraid to speak out about it. They hear the podcast enough times where they say, it's wrong of me to stay silent.
Yes. Yeah.
My heart is not feeling comfortable with this. Yeah. And, that's taking it to such another level. We're not just giving facts. We're talking about what's the right thing to do. The ethical, moral, conscientious, heartfelt thing to do is to speak out. If you know something, you should speak out. What do they say? If you see something, say something, right? That's the phrase for other types of assault and things that are happening. So we don't have victims in silence. This is really kind of related to all that. We have a lot of victims that are in silence, and their parents are victims. Our society is treating them like perpetrators, even though they've been victims. And we've got a lot of people staying quiet and staying right in that safe zone because they're afraid to say anything. And nothing's going to change until we get that huge group of people to step up. And once one does, the other does. And it's kind of like, the door needs to open for everybody to really come forward. And I love hearing that too. I love hearing that it emotionally moves people to where they feel they need to take action and they feel like their heart is calling them to say something and to be a part of this with us. Which is how we both got into this, is we both felt like we can't not do it. Isn't that the thing that we always say? We can't not speak out about this. Because how do you just go to sleep every night going, I know what's going on. I know what happened to my kid. I know what's happening to other people's kids, but it's too risky, or I'm not sure I want to say anything, or I don't want to, ruffle feathers, or whatever the reason is. At some point, you have to sit there and say, like, if I'm going down, like, and I've thought this, if I'm going down, I'm going to go down loudly. Like, I'm certainly not going to let them push me into a corner and diminish me to where I have nothing left of myself.
Yeah.
So not just myself. Obviously, I'm doing all this for the voice of my kids, which gives you a lot more power than you think you have usually. When you're fighting for somebody else, you get a lot more strength to keep going. It's not about, you're not fighting for yourself. You're really fighting for them. And so you have to push through it all. But I figure, some people say, well, don't you feel like your life is at risk, or do you get threats? I've had people ask me that.
Yeah, me too. All
You
the
too.
time. Yeah.
And I honestly feel like if that's where it's going, I might as well go down guns blazing. You know what I'm saying? And because what's the alternative?
Right.
The alternative gets nobody anywhere.
Right. Yeah, I think so many patients thank me for it. And yeah, that's my number one answer is I can't not do this. There's just no way to not do what we're doing. I couldn't go on with the rest of my life and walk away from this fight and ignore it. So it's extremely important.
I just wanted one quick anecdote. A personal story of like a friend I just got into a conversation with today. It's, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes you'll have friends who maybe don't have kids, and they see what you're posting about your own kid, but they immediately assume it's wrong because it's against what the mainstream says. And so you're basically guilty until proven innocent, right? Even though they're a friend. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking, okay, so this guy, if he would have told me something happened to his kid, I would have enough respect for him to assume what he's telling me is the truth because I know him. I know he's intelligent. Right. I wouldn't assume he's lying. I would assume the opposite. I would be like, oh my God, well, so tell me more. What happened to your kid? I didn't know about any of this. And I would assume it's true. But it's really odd that I find myself sometimes in situations with people from high school or friends that know you from other things, or maybe they don't have kids yet, who it's the opposite. They assume what you're saying isn't true. And it's such a difficult thing to have to defend to somebody you've known for 10, 12, 20 years, like that you have to almost prove to them what you're saying is true instead of the other way around. And I find that really hard with people that why is it in our society that people don't just, you have a friend or a colleague, if you told them my kid had seizures after this, they should be saying,
oh my goodness, tell me more, what happened?
Oh my God, how are they now? How's your child now? I didn't know that could do that. Did you know that could do that? What does your doctor say? Like you would be finding out information just like any other situation. But in this situation, because of the climate, as soon as you say my child had adverse reactions from vaccines, the instinct is for people to go, well, that doesn't happen. So you must be mistaken. It's probably something else, but I don't really want to engage with you on it. Don't want to make you feel stupid about it. So I'm going to stay here on the periphery, not really look at your posts, but occasionally comment if somebody says something. But I'm not going to come to you and say, hey, person I really care about that I've known for 20 years, I can't believe that happened to your kid, and I'm so sorry about it. I feel like there are a lot of people listening that have probably been in the same situation, but this just happened to me this morning. So that's why it was kind of like on my mind. And I actually wrote him a message saying, if this would have happened to you and this happened to your kid, I would have immediately believed you because I respect you as a person.
Yeah.
And I've had lots of circumstances with people, especially at the beginning, when I first kind of got into this community, some people that immediately stopped contact. And these are people I'd known for 20 years.
I lost my college friends over this in 2015.
Right. And it was around the same time, 2014, 2015. Yep. And you're thinking, these people know you. They know you're intelligent. They know your history. They love and care about you. They should love and care about your kids. How quickly that goes away when you have a viewpoint that is not popular.
Yes.
Yeah.
And anything else, they're going to rally behind you.
But I think it's only vaccines.
That's what I mean.
I mean, you could say, I think global warming is real. And you're not going to lose friends over that. You could say, I don't know, I think we should go colonize Mars, and spend tons of money on that. You're going to lose friends over that. I mean, you could say, I really do think the world is flat. And, and here's why I think it. They might think you're crazy, but you're not going to lose them as friends. I feel like there's so strange that vaccines seem to be like the only thing out there that someone's going to lose friends over. Is there anything else? I mean, am I wrong about this? Is there any other?
Maybe your faith sometimes.
But I don't know that.
Or being a Trump supporter in this day and age.
I mean, maybe politics, but you're so right. You could say, my kid just got in a car accident and now he has seizures.
This is my point.
And the person's like, oh my gosh, whose fault was the car accident? How's your kid doing?
They would share on their page. prayers for my friend's child
who in a car accident
who
now
just
is
this
having,
happened. Or if your child had another medication or a food reaction that caused them to go into a coma, they'd set up a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
It would go around.
Yeah.
They'd be showing all their friends. But you can literally tell somebody this happened, and they know because they've been watching your page for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and they've never said a word. But you know they're watching because they've been commenting on things. And you're thinking, where is your concern from a human being to a human being? In this particular case, he has a wife who's in public health. So, and they have no children. So he is believing what she is believing, and she's believing whatever books she's given to believe. And in those books, they don't talk about vaccine injury. They don't talk about adverse reactions. That's not part of the training. So that's not part of their consciousness as a medical professional or somebody associated with health. And then when you don't believe anything other than what you've been taught, here's your bubble. You're kind of believing the media. When somebody comes along, it doesn't matter that you know them. It doesn't matter that you respect them or think they're very intelligent. When they tell you something contrary to that, it's just like they freeze, often the way that people on our side have frozen to counter back. They freeze and kind of just don't agree with you, but also don't offer you any support. It's like the strangest thing ever.
It's
like you think I'm lying.
ostracizing.
You think I'm lying? Do you really think I'm making this all up?
Yeah, but again,
for what reason?
It's only with vaccines. Yeah, it's just it boggles my mind. And this reminds me of my favorite new quote from someone that I just heard, that it's almost impossible to hate somebody if they know your story. And in this case, those people are choosing not to listen to your story and then walk away from you because it's about vaccines. But
or they think they've heard it. Oh, I saw how you post, so I know how you stand. Right? It's very much like, well,
but,
I know where you are.
Yeah, but they obviously didn't hear your story. And so when somebody hears your story of vaccine injury, if they're going to be a true friend and they're going to embrace that, then it's very hard for them to actually hate you and discount you and want to walk away from you if they actually see you as a person and see the human side of this. And so that's part of our goal, is not just telling your story, but making the human connections with people. And your number one goal is to get to that person to kind of be your friend and trust you and listen to you first, and then they can embrace your story. Kind of like what you did with that person online. You told them what you would do if this happened to their child.
And I said to him, let's meet up in person and talk about, I mean, I haven't seen him in many years. But like, if you ever want to know more, I'm happy to meet. It's much easier to go over this in person. I think a lot of times people assume, well, if I support you on this issue, then that means I agree with you regarding vaccines. And I don't, because I think everybody should be. And it's like, you don't have to agree on your own personal course of action, but you do have to at least have enough respect for somebody to believe them.
Yeah,
just to believe them. Because again, am I lying? How could this many people be lying? And you might not know everybody else, but you know me.
Right.
You know me. Do you think I'm a liar? Have I ever been a liar before? Do I have a track record of making up these lies and holding them for 5 and 6 years at a time? I mean, there would be no need for me to do that. So if you know I'm a person of integrity and a person that you respect and care about, isn't that enough?
Right.
Shouldn't that be enough?
Right. But so then it sort of challenges that person's integrity and character. If they're a person of extremely poor character and no integrity, then no, they're gonna walk away from that friendship with you, and they're gonna say,
well, they're choosing the media over you.
Right.
They're actually choosing something they don't know. That is literally fabricated based on whatever like advertisers you have behind the scenes there. They're choosing that over the person they actually know, but they don't realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
Which is something.
No, you're right.
Poor
So they feel justified in doing
Right.
it. They don't know that they're just showing such poor character, and if they're really going to be a real human being about this, instead of somebody with no feelings or integrity whatsoever on
but
this.
But they're turning on you. It's almost like the Red Scare and this time where everybody was calling people out. They were calling people out. People that they didn't even know maybe had that history, and they were turning on them, friends that they had known for years and years and years. It's weird what a climate can do to you. A certain climate created to create this fear and turn people against each other. It's like, we know each other for 20 years. You're telling me that you're ready to throw me under the bus, is be like, well, I don't believe anything that you're saying. Oh, all of a sudden I'm just like out there, right? I was smart before, but now I'm not. Well, it's just funny to me.
Yeah. Well, where did this guy post this? Because I want to tell him, on social media, what I think of him. And
it's on Facebook. I'll tag you.
All right.
I'll tag you. But also, can I mention the Denmark thing? really quickly.
Yeah.
So I posted about this morning, but in Denmark, they passed a law yesterday related to the coronavirus. And we've been mentioning that a lot because obviously it's in the news everywhere. But related to the coronavirus, where they are going to include punishment for those who do not test for coronavirus if you refuse to get tested for it. And they are allowing in their law authorities to force vaccinate the public. Okay, there is no vaccine for coronavirus yet, but this law is in effect all the way until the end of next March 2021. So for sure, 1 year. And you can be sure that there's going to be a vaccine before then. But whether or not there is a vaccine is not the point. The point is they've got it in law now. And this is just one country, right? But they've got it in law now where authorities can force the public to be vaccinated, the mass public to be vaccinated for something. Something I also posted about yesterday, that is going to be skipping clinical trials. They're literally skipping animal testing, and they are going to go right through to human testing. They're going to be skipping the necessary steps that we have in place to make sure something is safe, and they're going to go right to the human population to test it. And now you've got a country who has it on the books already that they'll be allowed to force that vaccine on the public. And people might think, well, it's Denmark. That's not here. Just remember, this is what's going to happen is everybody's going to be following suit. And this should be concerning to everybody. Like, this has nothing to do whether or not you believe or don't believe in vaccines. This is way bigger than that. This is the idea that you have no more bodily autonomy, however you say it. You're going to take away your, inherent rights, something that's going to have risk for some people, especially when they're fast tracking it. And now they're going to force an entire public to do it for the small, teeny tiny percent of elderly with underlying health conditions that are the only ones at risk of this particular virus. This virus is less deadly than influenza, and we've never shut down the world over that and never force vaccinated for that. And now we've got what's happening now setting a precedent that I think is extremely dangerous. What do you think?
Right. Well, it's becoming politically incorrect to sort of like disagree with all this quarantine process, and you're almost going to be vilified if you speak out against this, because it's almost like because the government has issued this whole shutdown of our nation, all the travel restrictions, everything's closing, and all the events are being canceled. People are going to now look at you funny if you don't agree with all that, and if you're not on board in every possible way to shut down coronavirus and help everyone else shut down coronavirus, then you're going to be, again, looked at as a flat earther. I don't disagree with what our country is doing right now. I mean, I somewhat agree with, the attempts to try to bring this outbreak to an end, but I'm very uncomfortable with how political they're making it and how they're almost trying to set us up for saying, okay, every disease out there is terrible. We have to do everything we can, and the government has the right to take away the individual rights of its citizens for any medical reason that has to do with any disease now, because we're going to do it for coronavirus, something that's almost never fatal to healthy children and healthy young and middle-aged adults. But I guess they're setting up the elderly maybe as the new immunocompromised. Immunocompromised is why they passed all these mandated vaccine laws in the first place. Now we're going to have the elderly population as the target population that we need to protect from coronavirus. So we all have to do our part. And I mean, not to say that that's not a nice goal to have. I mean, yeah, we do want to protect the elderly population, but I know they're going to use that as the excuse. We have to protect every grandma and grandpa out there. And so it's your duty to take an untested coronavirus vaccine. And if you're going to say no, then it's our right as a government to force it upon you, even though we haven't tested it for safety. And I think that's all what I'm very uncomfortable with.
Well, this is the theory with keeping everybody home from school, right? That kids are going to somehow be bringing this back to grandparents. It's like, well, first of all, here in America, most families don't live with their grandparents. Grandparents, extra generations aren't really living together like they do in other countries. But also, they assume all these children are going to be completely asymptomatic. And I think that has been misinformation that has been spread around. They're using that to say, yes, I know kids don't get it, but really they could just be asymptomatic, and they're spreading it to the older population. But from what I've come across in the data on China and the data, the SARS data, from several years ago, is that they're not asymptomatic. They have mild symptoms,
Right.
symptoms of a cold,
Right.
but not one that's devastating. So anybody that's sick should stay away from elderly. If your child's sick and they
Yeah.
have a fever, they have a runny
No,
nose
you're
or
right.
something, you should stay home.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean every healthy child you see is secretly harboring coronavirus, ready to like give it to every older person. I think people have misunderstood what this idea of what asymptomatic means. And it does not mean they are completely without symptoms. Children just have a milder case if they get it at all. So to assume every healthy child is just holding on to it but hasn't shown symptoms yet is erroneous.
Right.
And I think that that was the actual reason that they thought it was okay to close down all these school districts, thinking, well, yeah, kids don't get it, but they could be asymptomatic carriers and you just don't know it yet for up to 5 days. But I think that's actually not accurate information. Because again, from what data has shown us before in China, in this current outbreak and in SARS outbreak, they weren't asymptomatic. They either just didn't get it or they had very mild symptoms. They weren't spreading it around
Yeah.
to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm curious.
Well, you could almost say pre-symptomatic. Like they don't have symptoms yet, but they're contagious for a day or two before they develop symptoms. Possibly that might be what they're thinking. Because I think originally they thought coronavirus could be contagious maybe 5 days before you even have symptoms. That's what they were guessing at. Maybe
I heard
when
originally
it
2 to
first
14,
started.
but it was such a broad range.
Right.
It's
So
like-
they'll narrow that down, of course. But I guess, unfortunately, what they're going to do with coronavirus vaccine is they're going to develop a vaccine, test it in humans, and the only marker they'll have to test for is whether or not it creates positive antibodies in your bloodstream.
Right.
If they can prove that giving, 10,000 Americans this shot creates coronavirus antibodies in the bloodstream, then they're going to approve the vaccine. And then they'll collect safety data after the fact. They'll do a little token safety study and collect, like a list of 10 side effects that you have from this vaccine. And they'll kind of publish that as, quote, safety research. Then they'll approve this vaccine. You can guarantee they're going to approve this vaccine.
But the idea that we all have to get it.
You're right. Yeah,
For it to work.
You're right. And the fact that a country like Denmark is going to mandate this, then is all of Europe going to mandate it? And then is the United States going to feel the pressure to mandate it as well? And I hope the public rises up and says no. But again, they're playing this so well.
Right.
They're setting us all up to make it so as a public we can't say no. It'll be like,
American.
Yeah,
you're right.
Anti-American to say no to the coronavirus vaccine, and then people are going to look at you funny for doing that. So, this is so frustrating.
What happened with the SARS vaccine? Because that
They never
really,
used it.
Yeah, it never really came to the
Right.
public.
The
right?
outbreak was over before they even got the vaccine approved. So now they have the vaccine ready in case there's another SARS outbreak.
But I've heard that during their animal testing for that, there were a lot of animals that died instantly
Jeez.
when they first started their first level of clinical trials, which is the thing they're going to they're going to skip
Right.
this time around.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if, gosh, I got to believe this coronavirus outbreak hopefully is over way before they even develop a vaccine. They'll do the clinical trials on any humans that that are dumb enough to volunteer for that.
They're paying $100
$100
per vaccine, and you have to do it 1 month apart. So 2 doses,
Wow.
1
Wow.
month here
Okay.
and the next month,
Okay.
and each one is $100.
Okay.
So you can imagine
That
that's going to attract some people.
$200.
Yeah, and some people need money like that, and some people are assuming.
So they'll approve it, and then it'll probably just sit on a shelf somewhere. I imagine, because the outbreak will probably be over before it ever gets to that.
So did you catch the White House address yesterday?
I saw President Trump's address a couple days ago. Is that the one?
There was a second
Okay.
one yesterday.
I didn't see it.
Also with President Trump outside the White House. It was the outside one. And then there was the White House correspondent doctor as it relates to the coronavirus, which is Dr. Deborah Birx, Birx.
Okay.
And she was the first one to announce officially, and I posted about this, that out of the testing that LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics have taken for all the tests with coronavirus, only 1% to 2% of those tests came back positive. So all of the people testing for coronavirus in the United States so far, only 1% to 2% came back positive for coronavirus, which means 98% or more were other respiratory illnesses.
Yeah.
But some people had said, oh, well, they haven't had that much testing here, so that's a small subset of people, right? Except she also talked about South Korea, which has had hundreds of thousands of tests by now since they were one of the secondary locations initially. 3 to 4%
Are
in South
positive
Korea.
for coronavirus.
96% didn't have coronavirus.
That's amazing.
But they came in to get tested for coronavirus, or they were a secondary exposure or next to an outbreak or something.
Wow.
They test all these people. 96% don't even have it. And in here,
crazy.
the United States, they said that even though these tests are new, we expect these numbers to stay the same, about 1 to 2% in the United States.
But the only people in the U.S. that they're even testing are people who have a known
That's what you said.
exposure
So
to
even-
someone who had coronavirus.
Right.
It's not like they're just randomly testing, a million people with
Right.
cold symptoms. You have to have either been exposed to a known case, or you have to be in severe respiratory distress where they think you are looking like a coronavirus victim.
Right.
It's not just everyone with a cold. So those are the people that you'd expect to test positive, and that's amazing.
I mean, those
that they're
numbers
not
are
testing
so
positive.
small. So most people don't realize, but with influenza on any given year, it's about 30% that come back positive, which means 70% during peak season of the flu are not flu viruses. They are other respiratory viruses,
Right.
which is why it's so interesting when
Right.
people say, I wish everybody else would get their flu shot. It's like, it's not going to help if it's
Right.
another respiratory
Right.
virus.
Right.
So you've got 30% in a flu season, and now you've got 1 to 2% during like the crazy corona panic. I mean, it's such a small amount of people that are positive. It really makes you wonder what's going on with all the other respiratory illnesses and why we're shutting down our government and shutting down our businesses and shutting down our schools. And really, we're gonna really put a wrench in our economy for a good number of months.
Yeah, for a lot of people that actually are not sick with coronavirus.
They're not even
sick with
sick with
other respiratory viruses.
And it's a virus that really only affects a very small subset of the population. And I mean, to go to these lengths, to possibly force vaccinate, to possibly get to that point over already a sickly portion of the population, to me, I mean, it just doesn't seem right. I mean,
Well, we want to protect that part of our population. We want to protect the elderly. I just don't like it being forced, and I don't like it, being forced with a vaccine that doesn't have safety testing, and forced with a vaccine that we know probably won't even work, and with a vaccine that's only covering a tiny percentage of all these sick people anyway, because most of these sick people are getting all kinds of other respiratory viruses. So ultimately, it's not going to protect the elderly population because there's no way to, vaccinate against all these millions of different cold viruses anyway.
well, it's kind of like the Prevnar vaccine and how they found that only 4% of pneumonia cases are even stopped by the Prevnar 13 vaccine, which is the one that's out here for adults, meaning that they were universally recommending it for every single adult over 65, which includes the elderly.
Yeah.
Right. And it's only helping in 4% of the cases. 96% of those cases, it's not going to help them at all.
Right. But if the coronavirus vaccine is similar to the flu vaccine, then it's not even going to stop people from catching the disease and being
transmitting it.
symptomatic and transmitting it. It's just going to make it so you don't feel as sick. And I can guarantee you, in their efficacy research, they're not even going to test that theory. They're only going to test antibodies in the bloodstream, like they do with the flu vaccine. That's all they do. Is they found positive antibodies. But again, since this is a respiratory virus, I just don't see how the coronavirus vaccine is even going to give anybody protective immunity at all, so you don't catch the germ and become symptomatic and contagious. You still will become symptomatic and contagious. You just won't go into respiratory distress, and you won't have maybe as severe of symptoms. But again, you'll probably be just as contagious. So in the end, it won't even matter. Forcing this vaccine won't even help protect the elderly population that we're trying to target.
So what do you think? What do you think would be the answer? Let's say a new virus comes into society. What do you think is the right way to sort of go about handling this kind of thing? If the vaccine's not coming for a year or two, so we don't even have that option yet anyway, putting a vaccine aside, what's the right way to deal with a new virus amongst, our society at large?
Well, I'm kind of glad that decision isn't my job.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge responsibility. I don't know how the government makes these kinds of decisions. I was telling a family member the other day, I would love to have sat in on those strategy meetings in the White House where they were trying to figure out, what the heck do we do? we have our economy to worry about. We have the health of our country to worry about. We have the health of the world to worry about. It's an election year.
But what
can
there
we
to
do? But I don't
mean, there
know.
really isn't,
Right.
outside of travel bans, which I get that.
Right.
I get that blocking international travel for a period of time. To me, that won't cripple the economy. But when you're talking about sending everybody home and sending people that are working home because now they have to take care of their kids, and people losing as independent contractors, losing their jobs, and you're not allowed to be in a gathering more than such and such people, so people can't come to church, they can't gather in that way. When you go to those lengths, is it really doing anything for, should we let the virus take over? Should everybody just get it so that we can all get it, have immunity to it, and see what happens at that point? Because you can't really totally stop it.
Right. I've thought that as well. I mean, we either spend, many hundreds of billions of dollars trying to stop the spread of this, and maybe we succeed, and maybe not very many people catch it, and we shut it down, or we spend all that money and all that effort and we don't succeed and it goes everywhere. Okay, then we've wasted a lot of money and hurt the economy in a very big way. Or do we sit back and let this disease kind of go through our population and kind of take its toll and run its course? I don't know what the right answer is. That's kind of say I'm glad I don't have the job of trying to make that judgment, because it's a tough place to be in, because you also have to wonder, is this not a natural virus? There's all these conspiracies. Is this a man-made, genetically engineered virus that escaped from a laboratory? A lot of people believe that is the case. So now we're actually fighting something that we even created, if that's even true. And so now is it more dangerous than the natural form of a coronavirus would be? And if so, maybe we should try to shut it down. See, there's too many questions that I think we don't know the answer to.
But again, like we said last time, how come nobody's talking about ways to make yourself healthier during the process?
Well, to me, that was the answer. Like you said, what is the answer? I think the answer is for our world to come together and realize natural, healthy living, healthy lifestyles, creating a healthy immune system naturally is by far 100% always going to be the best way to fight disease.
This or anything else coming.
Yeah, individually and as a society. So if we're a bunch of stressed out, overworked, malnourished, artificially fed and chronically artificially medicated, humans all over the planet, we're susceptible to this kind of thing. If we're living the opposite of all of that, then our species endures these outbreaks.
But nobody's talking about that.
I know, but because I think intelligent people in the know that.
Sure.
And they're living that way.
It's our government's responsibility to help guide people that aren't in the know. They're looking to our government agencies to guide us.
Well, this is where you always hear big pharma's worry is a patient cured is a patient lost. And not to go conspiracy.
Or a customer lost.
Yeah, you're right. A patient cured is a customer lost. It's a somewhat conspiracy theory, but
why aren't the public standing up going, okay, I'm a little freaked out about what's going on. What can I do to protect myself? Not how do I freak out about it? Is there a way to make me stronger? Hello, CDC. Hello, doctor at the White House who's giving us this. Can you guys give us any data about how to keep us? That's what I'd be wanting to know.
I know, but our government is so heavily pharma funded that for the government to tell everybody, here's how you be super healthy so you don't need pharma, that's a lose-lose proposition for our pharma-funded government. And so I don't think we'll ever get that from the government. And so that's why you're asking sort of why is this whole system broken? And this is kind of an example of an effect of when our system is broken so thoroughly, how our society is now approaching this whole coronavirus thing in a way that is, maybe not the best way to approach it.
But like you're saying, you're un-American if you don't support the quarantine efforts, support the travel bans, and support forced vaccination to keep everybody safe.
Totally are.
That's un-American. But nobody's sitting here wondering why our own governments and other countries' governments aren't trying to educate and prepare people for health to keep them safe from not just coronavirus, but the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. They want the economy to keep going. They want people to be able able to be healthy enough to show up to work, kids be healthy enough to show up to school. There's money to be made in all those circumstances.
Right.
So they want that. This is how we function as a society. You want healthy people, so you have a healthy product.
Yeah, so you have a healthy economy, but such a people would be very little dependent on farmers.
You're absolutely right.
Right, and maybe in the end that's not good for our
maybe
our
farmers
big
should
government.
get involved in supplements and put their money into things that they know are supporting health instead of things that are treating symptoms.
Yeah,
and they can still make money.
like a coronavirus vaccine. You know, of
Or
course.
that.
Right. Well, let me tell. I mean, I think some in the government maybe have wiser heads than others. A lot of people saw the Surgeon General's quote.
Why don't you? I'm curious. Why don't you read it to us, Dr. Bob?
I'm never going to live that down. See what I have to deal with, Colleen? Colleen's still here.
I keep figuring out a way I can interject, but you guys are so good.
Well, welcome to my life, Colleen. You see me, I'm like, wait. She's taking a breath. Now I can say something. So the Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, in an interview on March 4th of this year with Amber Strong on Newsy, he was quoted as saying, "What I want Americans to know is that when we look back at past infectious disease outbreaks like this, they weren't ended with therapeutics or with vaccines. They ended with hand washing. They were ended with social distancing. They were ended with the basic public health and hygiene measures that keep us safe from the flu and the everyday cold, and will also keep us safe from coronavirus." Now, he doesn't add, living a healthy, organic life and eating well and exercising, but those are also public health measures. Yeah. And I think he kind of is sort of, explaining this whole issue, this whole situation we are in, kind of in one nice little paragraph. He says, "Don't panic. There's not going to be a vaccine or an antiviral medication that's going to bring this to an end. It's going to be everyone being smart, being wise, wash your hands like we always say, social distance yourself if you have to. And then, we'll use the straightforward public health measures, but public health measures include good nutrition and maybe taking some natural supplements." Right. And so I love how he put this, but it seems like the government did not really listen to him, I guess, which is kind of surprising. If he's the Surgeon General, right, he would sort of know what to do. But I think what we're doing with this, everyone's panicking and shutting down, but then also fast tracking a vaccine, skipping safety steps in the vaccine research. I think that's that hopefully won't end up being problematic, but it very well could. So maybe the Surgeon General can make his voice heard louder, hopefully, in the government.
Well, speaking of those clinical trials, skipping the animal testing, they had interviewed a guy. So this guy, his name's Jonathan Kimmelman. He's the director of McGill University's Biomedical Ethics Unit. And he quoted this idea that fast tracking a vaccine, he said, quote, "Outbreaks and national emergencies often create pressure to suspend rights, standards, and or normal rules of ethical conduct." Mm-hmm. He said, "Often our decision to do so seems unwise in retrospect."
Wow.
And I find that really interesting because it kind of reminds me of it made me think of it when you were reading what he's saying. In retrospect, a lot of times we find out it wasn't the vaccine or these interventions that stop something. It was X, Y, and Z. Just like they find out the disease is all kind of plummeted at a certain point, even before vaccines. Right. It's like when you look back, you can see things on a grander scale. And he's bringing up that ethical argument, this idea that to fast track something is to suspend rights and to potentially put people at risk. You're looking back on it, it's usually an unwise decision and an unethical one. And it's something that has to be considered. Like, people are so panicked that they're forgetting to include the ethical conversation in any of this. And like you said, it's very one-dimensional. We're afraid. It's un-American if you don't want to stop this just as much as we all do. And so you should be on board, period. End of story. As if we're in some kind of terrorist attack. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what it feels like to me. Except I've never been in a situation like this where it was global all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's always been like, oh, there's an outbreak in this country. Or, oh, there is a terrorist attack over here. I mean, really, the whole entire world is panicking at the same time.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
And there's nowhere to go to. There's nowhere to run to escape any of this. And if they do end up force vaccinating or mandating something, they're going to do it for the entire world, not just one country. I mean, think about the numbers we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of feel like some pharmaceutical person is like salivating right now, just thinking like,
you're right.
Oh my goodness.
Whoever
Five
comes,
of them, I think.
Have they ever had that opportunity before like this? In an instant, the globe needs something?
Yeah, the swine flu vaccine is actually a very similar scenario. And I think that was the last global pandemic. It was the swine flu.
Right, but then
and it turns out it wasn't very dangerous at all. And we're still giving the swine flu vaccine every year ever since then. It's mixed in with the regular flu vaccine. I want to share a little bit, I guess, about my family because this is interesting because my parents are older. They're like in their 80s. Sorry, Mom. I don't think my mom's 80 yet. Maybe she is. But she has like a chronic lung disease, right? So she has very, very fragile lungs. And so she's decided to like self-quarantine for a couple of weeks. Basically, no one's coming over. Kids, actually we took my grandchild, so it's their great grandchild, they're in town visiting. So we all went over to my parents' house and had a nice evening together so my parents could hold the first great grandbaby in our side of the family for forever. And so they were thrilled about that. But other than that, like one event, and we made sure everyone, if you're coughing, don't come over to this family gathering. And two of the family members actually didn't attend because they had just recently gotten sick. So we were very careful with her. But she said, other than this, I am self-quarantining for 2 weeks because if she catches coronavirus, just like if she catches a bad flu or even a bad cold virus, could be very serious for her, but coronavirus especially could be serious for her because she already has very fragile lungs. So she's taking it upon herself to quarantine and not even have coming over. She's not going out. She's not going to church.
Have you suggested NAC to your mother like you should?
I
Perfect
have
for
not.
somebody with chronic lung issues.
Okay.
That
Right.
could be a way to
Right.
help prevent any kind of secondary infections for her.
That is not a bad idea. Yeah.
It's not about it. It's a good idea because for somebody like her who has a chronic issue, it can give her an extra layer of defense against, again, like you said, not just this, but anything else.
Yeah.
She should be on that. She can take it daily, 600 megs.
Yeah.
I'll write you a
Doctor.
prescription.
I'll remind her. But brought to you by NAC.
The doctor sitting next to me actually recommended that to my little one at home a year ago.
Yeah. So I just found it interesting that my mom, I think she's being smart. I mean, there's a particular infection that could be bad for someone who's old and also has very bad lungs already. And so, but she's taking a very simple measure, and I think if we took, I don't know, if we just, I feel like we could maybe be smarter about this other than all this fear and panic and mandating, things.
Would your mom be encouraging people to be forced vaccinated to protect her, though? Would that be part of her mindset?
No. She would be like, it's my responsibility to protect myself. I'm not going to go out right now until this is over. You're not coming over unless you're a great grandbaby, and you're not coming over if you're sick. She's just being very smart about it.
But that's what we should do with all illness, right?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I think what this is really showing us is that people don't usually wash their hands. They don't usually buy toilet paper. And and then they don't stay home when they're sick usually. Now everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is what we're supposed to do. Right. Yeah, guess what? You should have been doing all these same things already with any illness, because any illness can be a problem for somebody like your mom. Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just.
No, but there's also the degree of some mild illnesses, especially colds, are just a normal part of everyday society. If you have a minor cold, unless it's, during a coronavirus outbreak, if you have a minor cold, you're going to work. You're going on vacation.
But
you're going to school.
Would you? Even in like the first couple days?
Most people do.
But that's when you're contagious still.
Right.
That's the
no,
social.
You're right.
You're not supposed to
We've been talking about what was politically correct earlier, right? So it's
You're
politically correct to still
It's acceptable.
go to school. Yes.
When you
and
have a
go to
cold,
your-
but now it's not because it's coronavirus.
And we should, Melissa's right, we should always.
That should never be acceptable.
Yes.
Because I don't care if if you feel like you can still work, has nothing to do with it. You could still touch one thing in your break room at your office that makes now another person come down with a cold. And what could be a mild cold for you could be more serious for somebody else. The whole idea is don't spread it. So stay at home when you're sick until you're not contagious anymore.
And if people aren't complying with that, then what do you do, Melissa? Do you force them?
Well, that's un-American to not.
Do you force them to get a
comply.
vaccine?
No, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Why aren't our agencies talking about healthy habits?
Yeah.
Can we stop being so sickly as a society maybe if we did some things differently?
Yeah.
And then when something like this happened, we wouldn't need to panic and all freak out because we don't have good behavioral measures. That's what's happening. And that's what we're seeing. Now people have to tell you how to wash your hands and they have to tell you, if you have a cough or a cold, you shouldn't go around people. No crap.
Yeah, but
you're not supposed to be doing that
but,
anyway.
But so funny. I mean, I'm not going to say as a doctor, I'm going to say as a person in our society who deals with medical issues on a frequent basis.
Hypothetically.
Because Melissa hates it when I'm like, as a doctor, here's my opinion, and my voice gets lower. No, it's so funny. Like if I'm seeing a kid with a cold, I'm like, who cares? It's just a cold. I don't care if they cough in my face. It's just a cold. If I'm seeing a kid who I think has something like whooping cough or who I think has the flu or now I think has coronavirus, I am totally freaked out. I'm like, please don't cough in my face because it's a disease with a stigma. Mm-hmm. Right. But the common cold doesn't have any stigma whatsoever. So that's why I think people, if you just think you have a cold, you're going to go around. Just because that's just, to me, that's an acceptable part of society. You're going to have colds in school. You're going to have stuff. But when it's a disease with a stigma, it's not okay. So so what you're saying is if everyone just treated all these things all the same and stay home at the beginning of an illness.
We'd have a lot less illness.
I mean, that makes sense. But who decides and who enforces it when you don't comply?
I don't know. Now we're in a situation where the entire economy
is shut down.
Yeah,
the government's going to decide for us.
Well, for kids, it's actually pretty easy because we got an email from our church shutting down service this weekend. But the week prior, they said our action in response to the coronavirus is that if we witness your child here in Sunday school with any of these symptoms, you are going to be called. So what if the schools and the churches and just followed that practice, that the parents would wake up pretty quick and go, oh, I can't take my kid to school with a runny nose anymore. I can't take them to church with a runny nose. They're going to be sent home. So I might as well just keep them home. Yeah. Like, it wouldn't be that hard.
Right. And I've heard a lot of parents complaining that, I can't take a day off of work to stay home with my child because I don't have sick days left. Yeah. So maybe the solution is working in with our employers to create a responsible program to allow parents to be responsible with their children. And you know what that does? That keeps both areas of society more protected because your child's sick, they still go to school. You probably caught it. You're still going to work.
Right.
Now you've got two segments of the population that are exposed, all because you couldn't take a sick day.
Right.
Maybe people need to look at the solution, which would be create an environment where it's okay to stay home, and maybe all this money that they're spending now to help supplement, they could be supplementing our society framework by creating a nice, stable environment for people to do the right thing as it relates to health. But again, that's a focus on health. We're not focusing on health with Corona panic. We're focusing on fear, and we're also trying to it's already here. Now let's hope you don't die from it. I mean, it's it's gone so far. There's no, what can we do to be better prepared for this in the future? How do we become more healthy as a society, et cetera? I haven't heard that conversation one time in all of this coverage on coronavirus. I've not heard one segment.
Now you have.
Well, from the vaccine conversation. So why don't we just turn this into two parts?
And on today's topic.
Well, no, we'll just make it a second. Let's make it a second episode. This happens sometimes.
This has happened before, Colleen, and
we'll just make it a second.
I've heard it happen.
Yes. So end your outro here, so we don't have to do it later. We'll wrap this episode up, and we'll come back with an episode specifically directed to healthcare practitioners and healthcare professionals and those in the medical field. And that way you can send them that episode if you have a friend or family member in that field of what we think they should know, how we would approach them, and maybe the best angle to come at somebody from in that field. So we'll get to that on our next episode and we'll wrap this one up.
Well, Colleen, what do you think about the studio now that's, I want to know what was in your mind, or how did you picture this would be? Did you picture there was a sound guy behind the glass?
I did think there'd be a sound guy. I didn't think you guys would be looking straight at each other. and actually making eye contact with each
Actually
other.
having a conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, though, I
imagine-
wanted it to be where we were facing like away from each other.
Full of it.
But Melissa's like,
So full of
No,
it.
I thought you'd be side by side with
Side by
like your
side, yeah.
laptops.
okay, yeah.
Because I have to tell y'all, Melissa doesn't have one stitch of notes or anything in front of her.
It's all up here.
I
in her
cannot
head.
believe her brain.
Some things I'll go based on my phone.
No, you
Sometimes I
barely
print out.
looked at your
She,
phone.
no, she has good
Sometimes I
days.
print
This is
out.
a good day.
Oh,
yeah.
But we
You
didn't
should
know
see
she
her.
was up all night.
I know.
And she's still
it's my third
functioning.
matcha, guys. See, there's something to this matcha. I'm
This
telling
is,
you.
this
And a
is-
veggie juice.
This is three
It's all good.
macho Melissa.
Yeah, this is the triple match. Well, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I think what's kind of cool is this really is a conversation. We turn on the
Yeah, yeah.
microphones and we're like literally talking to each other as if we're just having a conversation.
This
I think
entire
works.
episode 100% unplanned.
Yeah, we
other
didn't-
than me bringing matcha and Melissa not bringing muffins. That was the only plan. Other than that, yeah, and those are the fun episodes. I don't know. It's,
We just see where it takes us every now and
yeah,
then. Usually they're planned, but sometimes we just see where it goes.
Yeah,
And-
but we have to be looking at each other because I need to, like, if she's going to roll her eyes at me because I'm being stupid, I need to pick up on that.
No.
So I can sort of wrap up what I'm saying. Or
you have to look at me so you know when you can jump in. It's like, oh, wait. She's coming to the end of a sentence. And it's like the time.
Wait, I'm curious, Melissa. Wait, no, I'm curious about something, Melissa. Wait. Stop talking.
I assumed you guys would be instant messaging like through your computers to like
no, she
try
does.
to communicate about your communicating. But no, it's 100%
I'm like, stop
natural.
saying I'm
Right.
curious.
Right.
Knock it
I
off.
totally thought that's what was going to
I
happen.
know.
But there are times
Yeah.
I write on the back of my paper, stop saying I'm curious when we're interviewing somebody else. And I'll like slide that paper over to the
Yeah,
other
I thought
side.
there'd be that happening too. There's no room for that. To
No,
happen.
not with gluten-free lemon poppy seed muffins. There's no room for that.
Well, we
this
have
time.
to have fun when we do this. I think if this wasn't fun, I don't know that it would have lasted as long as it has. 'Cause-
And it's not always fun.
right.
Let me just
Sometimes it is a real drag.
a total chore.
I haven't caught one episode that it sounded like that.
Well, we're
I
very
haven't
good
listened to them all,
actors.
but-
Okay, well, it's a lot of fun having you here, Colleen. It's actually fun having guests, and we'll do this again with the other winners from the winners in quotes from the other fundraiser. And we'll maybe do this at our next fundraiser.
Wait, why don't we let
give us
Colleen send us out?
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
fun.
All right.
Thanks for joining us in the vaccine conversation. We'll see you next time. Bye.
We're gonna be the peace we wanna see in the world. Yeah, be the peace we wanna see in the world. Yeah, be the love we wanna see in the world. Be the joy we wanna see in the world. Be the change we wanna see in the world.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice. Always consult your healthcare professional for information on vaccines and infectious diseases.